And I feel a bit like the straight man after all those acts. I haven't got a hat or a stick or a video, so I'll try and throw a joke in or two to keep it moving along. My topic today, I'm going to talk about audience measurement, and those who know me well will probably think, oh, she's picked that because that's what she loves, and yes. But we did actually, for the content of this conference, sort of reach out to the ad ops community and say, what do you want to hear about? So today's program has all been about what you guys told us you wanted to hear about, and luckily, and I was thrilled that audience measurement was part of that. If I think about a couple of years back, having any conversations between what we classically think of insights, audience measurement people, and ad ops people, the language was completely different, and had many a frustrating conversation between the two. Very much talking about, from a audience measurement point of view, really top-line planning information, whereas the ad ops guys, who really, you guys must think, why is everyone talking about data suddenly? You guys have owned data for years, so you're suddenly coming to your own, and data is not a new thing for you. So those two worlds of what, and I did say to Aria before I would throw anything at people who mention big data, but I so you're welcome to throw something at me. So if I think about the marriage of audience measurement and ad ops, it's like little data meets big data, and bringing them together to make sense for the market. So I'm going to give it a bit of background on the market here today, and I'm going to finish a little bit on an update with viewability and market as well, so we can have some questions at the end. Audience measurement. So I throw the word audience in there the whole time, so compulsory cute picture of child there. It's about measuring people. A lot of the stuff you'll hear about today, if you think about the different metrics that we're talking about, we're trying to get to common metrics that work across different platforms, different audiences, different media. And if we look at, particularly if we look at what Aria showed in terms of the different metrics, the common one there is people, okay? It's all about reaching people with messages. How much time they spend, how many messages they see, and who you're reaching. So one sort of angle from my point of view is always come back to the sort of, and lowest common denominator sounds awful when we talk about people, but it's that thing that works across all different platforms. And we've had a lot of trouble in our industry coming back to that people number. We've talked about a lot of other metrics, and we really need to focus on the things that matter at the end of the day in terms of the clients and the products that get sold or the messages that get sent to market. So there's three words, and they sound a bit like buzzwords, but I will try and give them meaning rather than just throwing up three meaningless words up on the screen. From our point of view, from the IAB measurement, our philosophy is threefold. So comparability is so important. So why on earth do we care about having, I guess, an industry currency? Most publishers have their own data, ad-serving data. There's data coming from everywhere. And everyone thinks their data is the best, and probably yours is. But if we need something that you can compare across different platforms, different audiences, different markets, you need something that you can compare. And we're not just talking digital here. We're talking across digital, traditional media, mobile. The world's pretty complicated. So making sure that you've got numbers that are comparable, and that when you're making buying decisions, when the buyers are out there going, where on earth should I spend my money, particularly for a brand campaign, that they're looking at numbers that make sense and that are fair comparing across all different areas. Accountability, I really don't need to explain this. We've based ourselves as being an accountable media. We need to be really transparent and accountable on what we're measuring and why we're measuring it. So that were the buzzwords. So bringing that to really why we need it, and what difference does having measurement of people, and I'll go into a bit more detail of how we look at that in a minute. But why do we need it, and what does it do in terms of ROI or a difference to the market? So we're in a $4.4 billion market in Australia. So you're part of a pretty huge industry. We're now 37% share of all paid media spend. That's bloody incredible. 37% of all dollars spent on advertising are spent on a digital platform. It's exciting. So why do we need it? Why do we need this information to help buyers make informed decisions? We talk about selling audiences and audience targeting. If that's what we're doing, we need to understand and not just have, either cookie information or flat click-through information. We need proper audience information. We need data that works across platforms. Trying to bring together desktop and mobile data is not always fun unless you've got some sort of unique hook there. So we need something that can show people what the reach of a campaign, the reach of a brand is across different platforms. A big one for me is inventory differentiation. You can buy a lot of stuff cheaply, but understanding what's of value is hard, and particularly if you end up basing it just on cost or on click-through or a metric that doesn't necessarily give you the complete picture. And the big thing for me in terms of getting brand dollars so across to digital, and it's still a battle, we're getting there, but having that audience information is vitally important rather than just performance data. We undervalue our media environments a lot unless we take that in consideration. Okay, this is how we break up the world in terms of what we measure. And we can measure exposure and we can measure effectiveness. My main world is exposure, which sounds a bit rude, but I'll break that into what we look at from in terms of exposure. So environment. Now, when I talk about environment, I talk about a media environment. So how does an audience look across a different brand, across an app, across a part of a site? Which is probably the traditional rating side of things that you guys probably have heard about. We're getting closer into looking at actual content. As content's distributed in different ways and programs in different channels, we need to get smarter about how we measure content growing across different areas. And the third area is ad exposure, and making that a bit more real. The one thing that I'm really excited about bringing ad ops and audience measurement together is really joining that planning side of things, which we've always had that really high level strategic idea. You'll get the brief, you'll be talking about a very vague target, and then at the end of the campaign there's very detailed click and impression information, and there's this huge gap between those two worlds, and trying to make sense of what's happened, what's important, what do I do better next time, has really been missing until I think the last year or so, and it's improving all the time. I don't know how many of you saw, we made a big announcement on Monday that we reappointed Nielsen for the audience measurement currency and market. So talking at that sort of environment level, so measuring the ratings of different sites, apps, etc. Did people see that? Yeah? Good. So that new deed starts in January 1. So I guess, so what? Same vendor, what's new? The IAB did about 7 months of work looking in the market and looking at different vendors and what's happening around the world to improve on what we've got. The most important thing for me going in and coming out of this was to get a proper measure of what's going on mobile devices. We know consumers have been there for a couple of years. From a market point of view and how we're flogging mobile, to be honest, it's really not up to speed, and a lot of that, from my point of view anyway, which is probably self-serving, is to do with measurement. So next year we will have mobile ratings for both phone and tablet, and we'll also have cross-digital ratings. So you'll be able to look at a Fairfax or a News or a Yahoo brand and go, okay, what does that audience look across all three platforms, across desktop, phone and tablet as one piece? Is it the same audience? Is it a different audience? How many times can I hit it? So proper planning information across digital, which sounds easy, but it's not. And again, this is all from a people point of view. So it's actual mixture of panel data and tracking information to make that real in terms of what's happening. Other bits and pieces, we're trying to make audience measurement data come to life a little bit. So putting it in other systems, data portability, which is really important, bringing those worlds together, different data sets, making it more informed, making people have better data to make better decisions. And moving towards daily ratings, which I've had a bit of feedback on that in terms of people thinking, well, we've had daily data forever, we've got hourly data, but we haven't had daily people data. We don't really know what a person does across a day. We've got analytics data, but actually looking at audience data and that reach of, a campaign across different environments. We should be, I won't say the first in the world. If we launched it today, we'd be first in the world. The states are doing a lot of work with this from a broadcast TV point of view, adding in digital ratings, but no one's really doing it in terms of broad digital. So I'm pretty excited that we've got that across the line for the local market. Campaign and ad, really the area that's grown in the last year or so. Again, campaign and ad measurement has really been about ad serving until about a year or so ago. We've now moved into an era that we're looking at people again. You're probably sick of me using the word people. Who saw the ad, overnight data on campaigns, looking at people, not browsers, and demos to compare across other media. We've struggled a lot in digital to sort of get the brand dollars into digital that it deserves from TV. This will help. This sort of information of having demos and cross TV and digital information, of actually letting a brand advertiser understand their whole campaign, is going to shift dollars significantly. But Comscore and Nielsen are the two leaders in this field globally. They're both in play here. Comscore with their VCE product, so from an audience information point of view, they also have viewability and brand safety in other areas built in, and Nielsen from online campaign ratings point of view. So two really different methodologies. I won't go into the details here. If anyone wants to get me later, I can talk for hours on it. But the main thing is to understand it's actually measuring a campaign suddenly. How many people saw it, how many times, and who were they? It sounds basic, but we haven't had that to date. This is another pretty picture. This is measurement and ad ops working happily together, bringing different data sets. So this is, this is the future of the world. We've talked a lot about cross-function already today. This is another area where different data sets will come together and really help grow the industry and give informed choices, and suddenly be able to give CMOs information that makes sense. That's the audience measurement piece. I wanted to touch a little bit on viewability, where we're at. It's one of the questions that comes up a lot. This has been floating around again for a couple of years in terms of what is viewability, what's out there, what does it mean, what should I be measuring? People are asking for make goods, what on earth do I do? The basic information with viewability is the specs have been set basically for desktop inventory for a year or so, looking at 1 second exposure time and 50% of the creative on screen. Basic specs most people agree on. The problem is the technology at the moment is still really mixed. Again, philosophically, the IAB, I think we'd sound really odd if we said we want to charge people for ads that aren't seen. I don't think anyone's of that view. It's just getting that technology right. So we've got a local group set up together. They may make an amusing video, like our workflow group. I challenge them to do that. But we're coming out with a range of communications over the next few months. We'll put something out along with the workflow documentation on our site, hopefully on Monday as the first round of update. And we're going to be running a local test. A lot of the information we've seen from the States is really interesting, but we really need to get our hands on deep local information so we can actually prepare the market for what they should be seeing and what the benchmarks are. So you'll hear more information on that in the next couple of months. Again, with viewability, we're moving from really a served impression to a seen impression and making that more valuable. So good, solid inventory that has great in-target information will perform well in terms of getting real dollars and higher yields. I know that's always a hard thing. People think yields will never go up, but good quality inventory that proves its worth can really can really help with that, and viewability will feed into that. It's cleaning. It's it's a cleansing exercise. We're just waiting on the technology to be fabulous and robust enough for us to say, right, this is the data that you're seeing is accurate. I'm not going to go through this list. You guys will get links to this presentation. You've got to consider a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of things that can go wrong setting up viewability. The main thing is setting expectations, talking between buyers and sellers, and making sure that conversation goes on early, so you set expectations before you suddenly see data coming back. That's me. Any questions on either piece of that I've covered? Up the back.
Hi. I was just wondering whether you think Facebook's acquisition of Apple is going to have any impact on how media agencies measure audiences.
Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to have an opinion on that. Yeah, of course. I mean, each new technology and each new data partnership and way is going to have impact on the market. I'm probably not going to say what impact that's going to have on the market. Facebook has huge scale, deep data, cross-device information is really powerful. But again, if I step back, if I'm an agency, I want to see more than Facebook. I want to know what the world looks like. So, great information, but again, step back, make sure you're looking at all the pieces of the puzzle. Alex.
Obviously, Nielsen have won contracts.
Yep.
That's great. Were the other people that were in for that contract, did you see certain things from them that you were very interested in and you thought, oh, that's a good indicator that it's something we want to see potentially in the future?
Yeah, look, I did. Can't necessarily talk about them and tricky in terms of IP. But I guess the most interesting things in terms of themes were data partnerships, which is probably not surprising, and how, again, if I talk about how audience measurements come from this little data world, small panels, small samples, extrapolating out. So if we look at something like the OCR product that Nielsen do, it's wild for them, like old school panel people who are suddenly using Facebook and other data, big census-based data, and bringing those together. So we saw other examples of that, which are really interesting, and I think that's something for everyone to think about, because most people have some sort of data asset, whether it's a client or their own, and how that can fit in with other things. And again, bringing it to that industry point of view. So if everyone's off doing their own thing, absolutely, I get that in terms of differentiation. Bloody hard for a small market to make that work, and hard for people to make decisions based on these really broad, different data sets. So, and apart from that, look, Australia's pretty hot on audience measurement, I must say. So a lot of the overseas vendors were surprised where we're at and how much we demand in market, particularly from a quality point of view. I think if we look at what the agencies have demanded in Australia in terms of making sure we have media quality panels, if we look at OzTam, the work they've done, they've really set the bar in terms of doing great audience measurement, and that's really spread across the work that the newspaper work's doing with Emma. So I was pretty proud of where we're at, to be honest.
Hello. How would you recommend publishers deal with fielding questions from agencies or demands from agencies around viewability in the interim while the IAB decides on how it's going?
So our official stance at the moment is it's not a tradable currency yet. So the line to an agency will work with you and look at which technology vendor you're using, check that they're using an MRC accredited vendor to start with, and then have a look at the numbers. So again, it's that relationship, but it's definitely not ready as a tradable currency. Optimizing, absolutely, but tradable, not ready. There might be some vendors who have a different point of view on that, but that's where we're at the moment. All right, if that's all, I'm going to hand over to Timothy Whitfield from Xaxis, who's going to talk all things programmatic.